Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we are speaking with a 43-year-old athlete from Colorado who owns a tanning salon and a coaching company called Alinea Coaching, and they specialize in health and wellness as well as contest prep. And she started her personal journey in 2017, competing in bikini, and over the years doing 7 shows before turning pro in November 2022 as the overall champion of the 48 up category at the Masters USA's. And then she went on to earn top 10, which is amazing, at her pro debut less than a month later. Welcome to the show, Amy Vetters. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, you're so welcome. It was actually thanks to your husband because he messaged me on Facebook telling me I got to get my wife on the show, and I love that. So I had to ask. And then after I started following you and looking at your stuff, I'm like, yeah, she's awesome. So I like to start off by asking if there's anything you do or think about right before your heel hits the stage.
Don't trip. Don't fall because those heels are so tall. Other than that, it's just like, here we go. Like, let's just do the damn thing at that point. You know, the hard work's done. You're excited, you're nervous, but you're also like, let's go. I'm ready, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think when you feel that, you're like, let's just do this.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a momentous time. It's like the best moment because all of your hard work is going to pay off and be shown off on that stage. And I didn't mention this at the beginning, you guys, but we're actually doing a video. So if you want to watch us talk, yeah, join us on YouTube, celestial_fit. You can see us do this via video. It'll say on there audio only. So click the one that's not audio only if you want to watch us. But let's get into it. I want to go back to a time when you were working in property management. So you were under a lot of stress. Ultimately, you turned your entire life around after a major health scare. So can you walk us through what happened during that time and how it changed the way you live your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in property management for about 14, 15 years. And part of that time is spent in St. Louis, Missouri, where I'm originally from. It was in 2010 that I moved to Fort Collins, Colorado. And within a couple of years of me being here, I had started to just realize a lot of like discomfort and pain, whether it was in the neck, the low back, to the point where like just doing anything active was just not happening. I would make an excuse or just say, no, I can't, or I'm busy or whatever. I would find an excuse to not be active because I was just in a lot of pain and I didn't understand why. But the short version of why, after really working with chiropractor, getting into like a movement coaching process, which is totally different than like a personal trainer or a physical therapist, realized that really what it was just a series of years of locked up muscles being sedentary because it wasn't, I stopped being active after I graduated college. You know, I was an athlete in college. So it was from like 2002, 3, gosh, so long ago, up until about 2016 or 17 that I was sedentary. That's a very long time to be sedentary. So I fell into this groove of just sitting. And so just by being locked up, walking in high heels on properties and things like that, I was in so much pain, but it affected my mood and my energy. And I fell into depression and I fell into a lot of heavy anxiety, couple that by a lot of stress in the industry that I was in. As a property manager, you're literally on call. So I'd have my own phone plus the property phone. And I mean, middle of the night, of course, always that's when you're going to get the call that you just don't want when you're trying to sleep. And so a series of things between not eating healthy, too much caffeine to get through the day, being sedentary, stress, and then not having a good outlet for any of it, not knowing that I needed that or to ask for it, wound me up in just kind of a bad way. And I had gone to the doctor a couple of times because at one point, I've always been little. I'm 4 foot, 10 and a half inches tall, and might fluctuate
Wow.
between like 100 and 110 pounds ish on any given day. But, I wound up about 83 pounds little.
Oh,
And that wasn't in a healthy way. It was just by stress and the food going right through me. And so I went to the doctor, and the doctor tells me, you might have cancer. We need to run a few tests. So you hear those words and you're like, what the hell? And then life flashes and you're like, I'm too young. Like, what? How did I miss something? Um, a lot of second opinions, third opinions. And then it was working with that movement coach that I have found through a former chiropractor that I was able to get out of pain. When I was out of pain, low back, body, neck, whatever, things that were bothering me, then at that time I was able to move and I felt good moving. So I'd say yes to the things that I was saying no to for so long. And then I was like, oh, I'd really like to, maybe jump into something a little bit more exciting, like bodybuilding competition. It took me a few years to get there, but I did. And when that happened, of course, my eating changed. My nutrition was then front and center, where I never knew to have it be of an importance in my life. And that's when everything changed for the better.
wow. What a powerful story. So, from what I recall, you were really concerned when that doctor said you might have cancer, but you never actually did get it, which is awesome.
Right.
What was and then you worked with the movement pattern coach, it sounds like. So what was it that was maybe contributing to this? Was it just not just stress, but was it solely the stress?
So it was all things combined, wrapped up into one nasty little tornado, really, that caused stress, anxiety, and, my body. I wasn't taking care of my body. If you don't take care of your body from like what you put in, your gut health is so important. And that essentially affects like your mental well-being. Your brain and your gut are connected, and that's kind of like what drives everything, as well as your hormones. And so I didn't know that those things were things I should be paying attention to and taking care of. Nobody ever taught me about those things. So I spent about 6 months with a movement coach. But before I did that, I had to unleash myself from property management and get rid of those types of stressors in my life. I was damn good at it, but it was just a nightmare of like stress all the time. And so it took me a few years to figure out like what I wanted to do and break away and how I was going to do that. And once I did that, that's when I jumped into the world of, I hired a trainer, bodybuilding, things like that. But it was moving my body. It was eating well. It was drinking water versus caffeine all the time. It was eliminating quite a bit of sugar. I didn't realize I was such a sweet tooth kind of a girl back then. And all the fast food that I was eating. And I eliminated big stressors in my life from the career path that I was on, So by really learning through those things and then managing my anxiety and things like that all together, and sleep hygiene, things like that, that's how everything started to improve. But it took a series of years to really get to the point where I'm like, oh, I'm like a whole different person right now. I do everything different.
That's what I was gonna ask you about next, because I think it sounds, when you put it this way, when we go back and we listen to someone's story, it sounds very like, oh, that was easy. But then you said, it took years. And I think that's something I want to dive into a bit more is It takes time to change your lifestyle, change those habits, and even raise awareness. Like you learn about it, but then to actually implement it, it can take a lot of effort and energy and exploration.
Oh, it totally can. And you can hear something all day long and it can make sense to you. But until you start doing it and then doing it and then doing it over and over and over and over and over, it's not until maybe a year or two down the road where you can truly then look backwards. That hindsight is always 2020. Look back and say, oh yeah, I was in maybe a bad place, or I was doing my whole life like this. And now I'm doing it like this, and they're totally disconnected from each other. But you had to go through XYZ in order to get here, because we all have to have something to pull from in order to have betterment in our life. You know what I mean?
So true. It's kind of like you don't even know sometimes how bad you feel until it either goes really, really south, like yours did, or you try something else and you realize how much better you feel doing that. And you brought up gut health and this being really important. And this is something you've preached about online as well, and you support your clients with. So talk to us about that, because it seems like you went from not absorbing any nutrients to then prioritizing. So yeah, walk us through how you even explored it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to give you the very simplified version, because I think for those of us that don't know a lot about, say, the science of it, we'll just keep it simple. But let's put it this way: garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you put just a bunch of shitty junk food in all the time, and a bunch of caffeine, sugar-loaded drinks, soda, coffees, whatever, all of the time, eventually that's going to catch up with you, not just in the form of body weight, but in large part how we feel, from like lack of energy, feeling sluggish, feeling drained, feeling maybe a mental fog or fatigue in our body or in our mind. Those types of things, if are present more often than not, are big indicators, big red flags of maybe something's off. Can interrupt like the gut microbiomes. There's good microbiomes, there's not so good microbiomes, and you need to have more of the good microbiomes. And so when you're putting garbage in, you're not really allowing yourself that opportunity. But also it affects our mental health. So I mentioned earlier that like our gut is like our second brain. So what we think we know comes up here from our noggin, but it kind of is created with what we put in. We put good water in, we put good, well-balanced, nutritious meals in our day, enough food in our day, because some people can way overeat or way undereat. If we're hitting the target based on what we need, as each individual is different and what we all exercise or train for is different, then that's where we're going to run optimal more often than not. That will help our hormones run optimally too. And sometimes we need a little extra help there, perhaps, but it can help everything run more optimally. And if our gut is off, that can throw, like, if we're subject to depression or negative thought thinking patterns or anxiety, it will ramp those guys through the roof. And we're going to feel that. But not a lot of people know to associate sleep or good supplementation or exercise or food, more importantly, to be associated with our mental state. And so once we can get those things under our control, because those are easy things to fix, what we eat and how much, easy, really. If you think about it and break it down, that's going to go a long way.
And it's no coincidence that the state of our mental health as a nation and as a civilization has correlated with our diet.
Yeah.
And like the normal or standard diet and our moods. So it's very, everything's a system, right? It's all combined, and we can't deny the fact that there's evidence to support this. It's proven. It's not just talking out of our butt like we're holistic practitioners, or not that holistic practitioners do that, but people who are, oh, that's woo woo. It's not. This is actually shown to be beneficial. There's even research that shows just by making sure you eat your breakfast, you can reduce your levels of anxiety. So yes. It's like, and especially if you're combining that with not starting your day with caffeine, most of the times it's like, oh, I have so much anxiety. And I'll ask my clients, I'm like, how much caffeine are you taking in? Upwards of 400, 500, 600 milligrams. I'm like, what is going on? No wonder you're so anxious. This would be making me, I've been a caffeine addict.
Right.
Maybe I still am, but.
Well, and I think timing is important too. Balance is good, variety is good, and timing is also very good. Like, what I mean by that is, most people will get up and they're like, I need my little warm blanket, AKA coffee in a cup, caffeine in a cup, energy in a cup, right? Yeah. To start our day. But if you can kind of pull back from that and say, I'm going to start my day with food and water, and then maybe push your coffee off until like mid-morning, because that way we can help regulate our energy in our gut, and in a way that will give us optimal energy right from jump in the day. I kind of consider that like self-loving on yourself in the way of nutrition and hydration in the morning. Do I do that every single day? Most days I do. I usually don't drink caffeine until maybe 10, 11 o'clock if I don't have to. Yeah. But then we're not reliant on that to help us get through the day. We're allowing our bodies to function as they function best with whole nutritious food, water, keep it simple.
And Amy, you know that most of us competitors are addicted to caffeine and fillers of our food, having the lowest amount of calories or carbs or fats and replacing it with the low fat, the low carb, those types of options. So from a competitor perspective, how has it actually influenced your success or your ability to execute and be successful as an athlete by prioritizing this?
You know, I think there's kind of like a time and a place for just about anything, right? Maybe. When I get to the point of like my cardio's really ramping up and my food is being depleted or coming down and I feel extra depleted, you know, if I can't have more food, then I push water, but there's only so much water. You're like, sometimes your water is regulated too, right? Like, I don't want you drinking more or less than this. Okay. But I also just need a little pick me up. So if I need, you know, I have Alani, that's usually my go-to, or like a sugar-free Monster. I have anxiety, so I don't usually do like energy drinks, like multiple in a day, and something that has like a ton of caffeine, because I will feel it and I'll be like a jitterbug, but like anxious jitterbug, can't focus. So just a little bit for me goes a long way, but I will never have more than like one energy drink in a day. If I do, I'm like, here's mine. And I just, can I have a sip of yours? You know, I just need a little taste, you know, but it's more for the flavor on prep. You know, sometimes you just need a little boost, but when your food goes and you're eating real boring food, sometimes I just drink it and don't even finish it because I'm like, I need something sweet.
Yeah, I totally get that. I find that in a prep is when I'm most prone to becoming like addicted to the caffeine.
Yeah.
Also because, and I went really low in my last prep, and I remember it helps so much with appetite alone.
Yes, like, it does.
So
caffeine can be an appetite suppressant. But the bad thing is if you drink too much of it too, when you're on prep, like you're supposed to get enough water in your system, because it's monitored, or our muscles love it, you know, digestion, energy, all these things. But caffeine can also dehydrate you. So in moments where we don't, you know, we should be careful and mindful of how much we're consuming, really. That's what I'm saying, I guess.
No, I love that. And I like how you said earlier, there's a time and a place for everything, because I say the same thing when it comes to food relationship and the approach of like our mental health when it comes to that, where I'm not going to tell someone stop volume eating completely or never or always. I try to stay away from the overgeneralizations or the extremes that promotes the all or nothing thinking.
Right.
It's like we can use it strategically and mindfully. It's when it becomes mindless and like reliant. You used that word earlier, which I love. It's like when you become reliant on something, it should be a place where we shine the light a little bit brighter and see what's going on, which you had to do at the beginning of your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and a word that comes to mind is addiction. Like addiction is not just, you know, maybe drugs or alcohol, right? It can be in the form of caffeine. It can be in the form of I eat my feelings if I'm feeling emotional or stressed. You know, there can be many different forms of addiction. And so I think just being mindful, knowing that can go a long way for people to just kind of help. Oh, let me look back and be like, how much do I really drink? You know, that's something that one of my initial questions whenever I onboard a new client is, you know, how much caffeine do you drink, or when do you drink it? What's in it? You know, like, is it a cup? Okay. A cup is like 8 ounces, but like, what's your version? Like a fishbowl margarita size? Like there's a difference. So I always kind of get specific with them and like, let's have some balance to it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful approach to take, because it helps people to see you're not going to be unsuccessful if you don't do this. It's just the mindfulness that ultimately will bring you more success. And you referenced a movement coach being highly impactful in your journey, and I don't want to forget to ask you about that. But before we do, I feel called to talk to you about your daily habits, because I have a feeling you probably have a lot of things you do daily for self-empowerment and personal development, as well as your nutrition and your training and your overall development as an athlete and business owner too. So can you share with us some of the habits that you think make the biggest difference, but maybe are underrated or not usually considered?
Absolutely. That's a good question. But I think to first, to start my answer, I will say that it has evolved and it continues to evolve. Like I haven't been consistent with, I do this, this, and this for the past, say, 5 years. As I evolve, my patterns and my routines evolve too. And with as busy as we are, owning 2 businesses, trying to grow both of them, we're both pros, we're both, we've got our own personal competitive things or what have you going on. So I call them buckets. I have my tanning salon bucket. I have my coaching bucket, but within each of those buckets, there's maybe working in the business and then on the business to grow it. So in it would be like the work I do one-on-one with my clients from the coaching business standpoint, or on it is to the back end systems and to grow and to maybe onboard new team members and things like that. So they're 2 totally different sets of work or the same. So I have different buckets, but then sub buckets. And then I have my personal bucket and then a like family friends bucket, right? So as we get busier with the 2 main business buckets, it impacts everything else because that's what we do all the time is work. We have to fight to build in rest time, but that's also important. So we have to find it along the way, even if it's just an hour here, half a day there, we find it. We have to. But I think some of my routines that I started with very early on, when I came out of that place of, I felt really low, I was sick, I was getting better, I was in my personal transformation, I totally went through, I'm not good enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not capable, I'm not blah, blah, blah. A list goes on, right? I was in that place and nobody ever taught me then, like growing up, that those thought patterns that we have in our head, they mean something about how you either treat yourself or how your confidence or perhaps lack thereof shows up in the buckets of your life, work, relationships, whatever. And so I didn't know to think of those, right? I always just thought and really never mentioned it to like, okay, is something wrong with me? Like I must be a total crazy person because I have these like negative thoughts, but that's actually totally normal. Like the average human has 60,000 and upward thoughts in a day. They could be good, they could be bad, they can completely be random and like, what the hell, where'd that come from? So I think very early on, some of my habits, once I learned that there's this whole thing called you can think about what you're thinking about, which will dictate how you're feeling and then dictate what your emotional state is, which then translates into action, behaviors, things that we do. If you can catch yourself and ask yourself, is this thought true or is it not true? Before it becomes something that you feel, therefore an emotion that can weigh you down or I don't know, whatever. So before I knew all of that, I started to really just journal 3 things I'm grateful for every morning, anything at all. The grass is green, the sun is shining. My dog didn't poop in their kennel last night. I don't know. It could be anything. But then I also would do 3 things I love about my body. And I didn't believe them at first. I had to teach myself to do it over and over and over until those were the dominant thoughts in my brain versus the negative shit that used to be there. So I would journal those things, get out of bed, but I would write them down and then I would say them to myself in the mirror. And I totally felt silly doing that, but it goes a long way. And then I would just get to the point where the things that I started to believe about myself, I would literally put on a stick-it note, or Jay would. You were beautiful, you were capable, you were smart, you were talented, you were successful, blah, blah, blah. Things that I wanted to be, we started to say those. And he even was a huge part of that process. And we'd stick them on stick-it notes on the mirror, on the fridge, in my car, in my gym bag, wherever I was going to be and see and just pass by them so that they were top of mind. So I kept the positive top of mind. Something I still do, since that movement coach, which was a huge impact in my life, and I teach this to my clients too, is deep tissue massage ball rolling, not foam rolling. But so I do the ball rolling, which is far more effective than any foam roller will ever be, in my opinion. to release tight muscles, the muscles that you can't really get into with this long tubular foam of like pressing one big ball into a smaller ball that are both firm down into like your psoas muscles, which are alongside your abdominal wall. So if you're seated a lot, like we are for coaching work and stuff like that, our body is in this like crunched state often. When we want to be more upright and move, our bodies love to move. So when we're seated and not moving and we're holding certain positions, maybe hunched over a computer or whatever it is that people do, you have a mechanic on their backs up under a car or whatever, they're holding their arms over their heads, like certain things that we just do for hours on end, we have to release them and then go the opposite way with them. And you can't dig into the nooks and the crannies with a long foam roller. So that's something that has carried with me is the ball rolling. I just don't really go a day without rolling ever. So I roll, then I'm released, and then I stretch. So that's a big part of my day. Listening to slow meditative music while I lift is a part of how I lift. That's part of my habits. It used to be like the get it music, but now it's just slow because I have anxiety. And if I hear that music, I notice that it comes out in the form of me lifting faster. And then I miss sometimes the mark of getting the value that I want out of that lift. So I listen to slow music. I'm kind of boring when I lift, but I'm far more effective. So they have evolved over time, but those journaling prompts or the gratitude prompts, things like that are still present, but they're more vocal. Jay and I, if we're like catch each other in a negative state or a stressful state, and I'll even do this to my clients too, I'll be like, 3 things go. And we just know what that means. Give me 3 things you're grateful for right in that moment when you're in this shit mood. I want you to be positive. And that's tough to do, but it forces us out of it. I have to be out in the sunshine at least 30 minutes a day. I have to. So like I'm a solar powered human. I need that little dose of vitamin D because the little vitamin D tablet it's not enough. So if I can't get it in the winter or it's raining, lucky for me, I own a tanning salon. I can just hop in a bed. You know what I mean? Yeah. So vitamin D, getting a gallon of water in a day, getting to sleep between like 8 and 9:30, 10 o'clock at the latest. Have to. I don't care if it's Friday night, Saturday night. We're consistent with our sleep schedule as much as we can possibly be so that we can function as well as we can that next day, any day of the week.
If you've ever struggled in your prep or your improvement season or any transition phase in this sport, you know how valuable it is to have that direct guidance and support, but it's so difficult to find, which is exactly why I created the On-Demand Mindset Coaching platform for competitors. That is only $9.99 per month. How it works is you log into the system and you select what season you're in, and then you're prompted to select a struggle you're facing, and then even more specific struggles branching off of that. And at your fingertips, you will be given direct guidance and support with a PDF resource as well as video trainings. And you have tons of access to years of group coaching calls that you're more than welcome to replay and watch, and you get access to a live group coaching call every single month. So you're not only getting support at your fingertips, but you're also getting an incredible community there to support you along your journey. If this is something you're interested in learning more about and exploring, you can sign up at www.celestial.fit/on-demand and get access to this right away. There are no other join fees or cancel fees, so you can come and go as you please, and you are always welcome to be in the Build More Than Just a Body community. Wow. Well, those are definitely awesome habits, and I love how personal they are to you, and yet implementable they can be for anybody. I think my favorite is the 3 things go, like just interrupting that pattern immediately with something that's going to shift the frame of mind. And it's not telling you can't have your moment, you can't feel, it's saying, hey, I notice you're spiraling. Let's just,
that's it.
Yep. There's a difference between letting yourself feel and validating those emotions and completely spiraling and letting it dominate.
Yeah. And sometimes we just don't even know that it's happening. And that's where Jay and I are pretty good at like recognizing that in each other. And we'll be like, yeah, 3 things go. And that kind of is like a cue to be like, oh, hell, I just kind of went way negative, didn't I? Okay. It kind of snaps you out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I bet it probably changes your own thought process on
It
a,
does.
yep.
Oh yeah, it's like a trigger. It's like a light switch. It was off for a minute. Oh, now we're on. Okay,
Yep.
got it.
Love that. People underestimate how powerful our thoughts really are. I think it's something you hear, but to actually do the work isn't always the most glamorous thing. Like it can be hard to write things you're grateful for, things you love about your body, or things that you're excited about. Because if you're in that negative state of mind, kind of want to stay there, as sick as it sounds. It
Not that we
does feel
want
good.
to. It's just easier. It's familiar.
Right. Yeah, it's familiar. It feels good. It's so much nicer than the work that takes to actually snap out of
Uh-huh.
it.
It takes like if anyone is working out and they're in the gym and they're using a training that has sets and reps, it takes sets and reps
Yep.
every day. I've been working on mindset for years now, and every day is still a practice for me. Every day.
That's right. And I like to refer to it as progressive overload for mental gains.
I like that. It is.
Yeah.
It is. I
Yeah.
like that.
Right. Because
Mm-hmm.
we can conceptualize that as athletes like, okay, well, we know what progressive overload is. It applies to everything. And
Mm-hmm.
it's important that we pay attention to it too. And something powerful I've been thinking about a lot is if I'm spending 15 minutes a day doing something I don't even like to do, that's going to create a huge portion of my life. I'm going to look back
Mm-hmm.
and be like, oh, I spent actually so much time doing this when I would have been better off doing this. And I think that speaks to how you spend time in the sunshine, you prioritize movement, and you specifically referred to a rolling ball versus a foam roller. So can you
Mm-hmm.
tell people what, if they wanted to buy one, what would we look up to find that?
At one point in my life, I would like to create my own and have my own patented at some point, in colors
Yes.
that I love. In the meantime, hop on Amazon and literally just type in the little search bar, deep tissue massage ball kit. And so what I like to do is find one that's like the size of a grapefruit or softball, a bigger ball, but firm. And then a smaller one, the size of like a lacrosse ball, firm, so that you can put one on top of the other and dig into like the psoas muscles and such, or hip flexor muscles, things like that, and really guide the one on top of the other to get in there. But I even like to use them individually, each size on like the glutes, between my glutes and the floor or my glutes and the wall, and really just kind of press in there and dig around. And you'll know once you do it. Some of my clients will be like, I was totally cussing your name the other day and it was amazing afterward. But I'm like, that's okay. But we have to break up that myofascial tissue that is just like a death grip around our muscles, which AKA tightness, soreness.
Yeah. Yeah. So aside from that, what other things did you focus on with your movement coach that you felt was really beneficial?
At first, and that's a good question too, because at first I'm like, is this guy a joke? Like, this is so dumb. He wants to see how I walk and breathe. I've been walking my whole life. I've been breathing my whole life. How on earth could this possibly matter? But he would watch me walk from the back, from the side, from the front. And what he was doing is looking at the gait, the way that I would step, the distance of my strides, or the way that I would land on my front foot as I would swing it forward to walk forward. Did my foot roll to the outside versus the inside, or was it solid? The whole foot was even. Were my hips kind of relaxed and my low back relaxed and my butt kind of stick out, or my pelvic or my belly kind of push forward? He would really kind of pay attention to how I was holding my posture. And then even how we like sit at a computer and sometimes their neck can kind of stick out forward. Like you can do that when you're walking and not even know it. So he was looking at all these things. And it wasn't until I asked him, like, what the hell are you looking for? Like, I don't understand why you're looking at how I walk. But as he told me, I was like, oh, then instantly and forever aware about how I hold my body. I'm not always posture perfect, but there's not a day that goes by that I'm not double checking it, like I am my mindset multiple times throughout the day when I'm seated, standing, lifting, driving, whatever. And how I hold my core, versus relaxing it, things like that. Am I rolling my shoulders forward versus holding them back? And then from a breathwork standpoint, and he knows that I had anxiety. That was one of the questions on the intake form when I started working with him. How we control our breath from a mindset perspective matters, but it also matters how we can like move our bodies and how long we breathe in between movements of subtle movements, clamshells and things like that. So he would have me do different movements and have my posture once he saw me walk, employ that same posture correctness, if you will, inside of gentle movements that were in place to help release, like active recovery kind of movements to release tight muscles. Very, very simple and subtle movements, but when done over time, just go such a long way. And then how you breathe through them and you're very purposeful, carry a long way for you.
Very, very interesting too, because we would question something like that. Like, why are you watching how I walk or how I breathe? But we forget we really do get affected by experiences we have that can almost, it's like a traumatic change. Like trauma can change how you even carry yourself or how you breathe.
Or how you hold tension in your body. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's really cool to hear how you invested so much energy and effort into changing this, which has me thinking, why? I know you had the health scare, and but what was it that made you go, no, I really need to focus on change, to not just the point of I'm going to change my diet, but to the point of all of these things that you shared. Why? What was driving you?
So I think because the way that I grew up was, put your head down and work, do the 9 to 5, you get married, you have a baby, the white picket fence, don't ask questions, just hustle, right? I have a very good work ethic and always have, and I get that from my folks. But what I didn't know is how you manage your stress and how you eat and all these and how you move matters. Like those just weren't things that I was taught. I don't think that my parents were taught those either. So how would they know to teach it then to me? So the way that all of this unfolded was I realized I was so stressed and I needed to be unstressed. So that's what happened first. And then when I had a different job out of property management, I could relax a bit, right? And then I still had some of that pain and discomfort in and out of chiropractors. And then that's kind of when I discovered like the movement coach, worked with them for a while. And then I decided I'm going to hire a trainer. But also while that was going on, I was in a relationship, and it wasn't a bad relationship, but it was kind of like I needed more. I wanted to go and own my own something. I didn't know what that was yet. I wasn't feeling like my life was satisfactory in the way that I had hoped it would be. And so it's not that the person was maybe holding me back. It was just the space that I was in my life with the job that I had, or the type of job I should say, and the type of relationship that I have and the habits inside of that relationship. Then I was changing and bettering myself, but the other one wasn't. And so when that happens, you can't want something for someone more than they want it for themselves, because it's not going to work. But eventually it just was like a fork in the road. And I realized, to do different, to be the person that I really know in here that I want to be. And even if I don't know how to do it yet, I need to just start. So I hired a coach because I grew up loving muscle. I just wanted to be a little muscle ball. And so I hired a coach to help me get there because I felt out of pain and ready, but that's when I learned about nutrition. And as I was going through my first rodeo, if you will, 2017, of building towards my first competition and training, really focused on food, continuing to roll, continuing to invest in myself. That's when I realized that I'm kind of just doing me solo right now, and I'm in a relationship, but we're not relating. And so that was huge because that relationship was around 17 years of my life. And so when you're no longer then with that person, it's kind of like mourning a death, even if it's for the best and you wish them well and all of these things, and you're afraid to jump out on your own, it's still hard. I went from changing the relationship to changing my job to changing the trajectory of my life to changing where I slept at night for months until I found where I was going to be. I couch surfed for a while, even everything about my life inside of my first year of bodybuilding changed. Literally every single thing, my bank account, the car, everything, friends. When you leave a relationship, no matter what the circumstances are, unfortunately, you part ways with family or friends that you had within that relationship. And so I felt like I had lost literally everything. Yeah. And that's at the point where Jay and I, he entered my life, and He was a persistent little snot, and I was not ready for anything or looking for anything, but along he comes. And so here we are. But when everything about your life changes all at once, to me, that was very traumatic. So while trying to deal with stress and get away from it from one job, it was very stressful, changing every fucking thing about my life, which then caused other stress. But I was better equipped to handle it at that point because I'd already been working on some things and fueling my body with good food and things like that. But Justin is Jay. Jay is Justin. I just call him Jay. He's been a massive part of, say, my inward transformation, because he is my coach, but he has space to be my friend and my husband and my coach all at once. And so he's been a part of that. And so now we just kind of do that for each other. You know what I mean? So it started with one thing. I got good at it, and then another, and then another, and then another. But everything in the background of my life was happening all at once, which was crazy.
I'm really happy you shared all of that. And actually, I was going to ask you about your relationship with Jay, because I was curious about how that came about. So it was nice to hear that. And also, I was hoping you would talk about the impact of being in a relationship that maybe wasn't conducive to your life vision anymore, or your lifestyle needs. And you explained all of that really beautifully, but can you also paint the picture of how now being with a partner has actually maybe benefited you, or shown you that that was really the best decision for you at the time?
Yeah. And, because I did come from so many years of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not blah, blah enough. Just because you get good at new patterns, new routines, new mindset doesn't mean that every once in a while, a little snippet of the old version of you, or the 10-year-old, 5-year-old Amy that remembers something that now just came up in my adult life. It doesn't mean that doesn't every now and then just say, hello, I'm back to challenge you. That's why I say it's always a work in progress. I think for just about anyone, like the relationship that Justin and I have is, and I think that we consider it unique, but I'm sure there's other couples that have this. And I hope that if not, they find this or can create this within their relationships, even if it's just a friendship with someone. But true support looks and sounds like this. I know this is important to you. This will make you better. I want you to be at your best, because when you're at your best and I'm at my best, two whole people coming to the table, then we're going to be successful in whatever it is, and with each other and as individuals. And it just so happens that Justin and I wanted to run businesses together and make massive impacts on people. But I think we each had to have our own shit in life happen, uncomfortable as some things have been, and we each have our own stories, but that's given us a massive platform to pull from, if that makes sense, with clients, employees, friends, whatever, family. But I think we have the hard conversations, and we have them often because so many people shy away from them. They don't want to own their own oopses, or role in maybe something that turned into a disagreement or lack of understanding or a frustrated something. Like, we are two imperfect humans that really just try really, really big, and it can be uncomfortable, but we know and understand each other so dang well because we're so vulnerable with each other, because without that vulnerability, you can't truly understand someone. And if you don't understand them, you can't then support them. And I'm going to use my dad as an example of support. I love him. And I don't think he knew until this past fall when I was on prep for that series of shows. I don't think he knew the importance of when you're on prep and you're knee deep in it, you're like 4 weeks out from a show, you weigh and measure everything. And he kept coming by and stealing the blueberries out of my bowl that I had just weighed, and I only get this much of right now, and he thought it was funny. And I was like, this is not funny to me. I had to put my foot down and be like, Dad, no. But he kept doing that. I was like, stop it. He was here. He was visiting us. And he never got to see me be that strict before. He's heard about it, but he hasn't seen it. And when I was so committed, I was making my time for the gym, making my time for cardio, making my time for work, making my time to visit with them and to weigh my food. And when he saw this for a week steadily, even though I had to put up a firm boundary and yell at my dad, which I don't love to do, but I had to do to like get that point across and have it be a wake up. That was the first time that my mom and dad, after I won a local show here in November, that they congratulated me because they wanted nothing to do with the bodybuilding thing. They weren't really into it. So, but by seeing me do that and then me putting a boundary, which is something that I work on with my clients too, and Jay and I have those together, then he never did that again. That is support.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is funny. Okay, but you don't. Or let's put it this way. Oh, come on over. We're having a barbecue. Try this, try this, try this. But I know you're on a diet and you're saying no, but I'm forcing my agenda on you. That is not support. Oh, you can just have one bite. You've worked so hard for it. Fuck that. That's not support. Mm-hmm. Here's what I have to do to get where I want to be. And this is what I want to do. But you asking me or forcing food on me is not support. Exactly. You know what I mean? Or like, oh, you can just sit on the couch and relax. You've been working hard, instead of telling someone, get your butt up and go to the gym like you promised yourself you would. That is support. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So Jay and I are very good at holding each other accountable and ourselves like together accountable in a very supportive way. But we have those tough conversations. You just have to be successful.
What are some tough conversations you've had in the relationship that maybe in the past you wouldn't have out of fear of losing that person or hurting each other?
I think something recent, and that's a good question, because we all have those things, whether we like to say them out loud or share them or not. You know, I didn't realize that for years I had been one to maybe internalize things. Mm. He would say something to be constructive and to share his feelings. Hey, when this is done or said, it affects me in this way, or when I'm just if he's simply just sharing and then it had nothing to do about me, but I'm over here in my head rolling it around of like, oh, is this my fault? Did I do something wrong? And then I say it out loud and maybe I didn't realize that I was doing that. And so a tough conversation to be like, he was saying it, but maybe in a way I just wasn't picking it up. And so he had to get like blunt with me more so than normal. And because we're pretty direct with each other, where I was like, my feelings were hurt and I started crying. And I'm like, oh, I didn't really realize you're just trying to share and be constructive, but I'm over here thinking, now it's just all my fault, you know? Mm-hmm. So internalizing, I didn't even know that was a thing that I was doing. You know, so sometimes you have to hear the uncomfortable, but it also makes you get better. And then it makes you aware. And once you're aware, if you're willing, then you're willing to do something about it to make it different. It's not going to happen overnight. But again, more steps, more reps.
Absolutely. And I'm in a newer relationship, but I feel like it's very intimate and very deep and vulnerable. And I think a big reason for that is because it started that way. I came out of a long relationship and I was like, I am not going through that again. Like, I know what I want. I know what I need. Mm-hmm. I won't, like, these are the boundaries I have for myself, the needs I have for myself. When you go years not honoring your own needs within a relationship and you do internalize a lot of things or you don't have those conversations, it affects you and you realize how important it is. And so in this one, I had like a note section on my phone that was like things I need to know before getting in a committed relationship.
Yeah, that's good.
And I remember in the first 2 weeks, I'm like asking these questions and I'm like, okay, now I have notes. I know how he thinks. I know what I want and need. And I'm not afraid to express, like, I'm not comfortable, because in my last relationship, it was like, oh, I'm not comfortable with this. And it was like dismissal. But in this one, it's like, I'm not comfortable with this. It's a conversation. It's hard sometimes, but and it allows him to do the same. And I think it's great to hear you express this too, because when you look from the outside in, a lot of people can see the bliss, right? But there's usually, there's some force that has to happen or pressure, you say, to make that diamond, as they say. So sometimes we forget in that relationship development or that healthy relationship, there are those hard conversations or times of directness and expression of needs.
I mean, I think like, you'll hear a lot of people say like social media is basically the highlight reel, and it can very much be that. I mean, it's not like we're going to just take to Instagram or something and be like, oh, we argued about this one day, but because what happens within the walls of our home and between us as, husband, wife, and business partners, we keep close to our chest, because I think that's where protective layer of most any relationship should exist. But I think you can tell if you really look closely who's putting out a highlight reel and who's just fucking genuine, because it's those that are digging deep and going all in and having those tough conversations and doing the work with each other and communicating, even if it's uncomfortable to hear. That's going to come across in how you portray yourself on any platform, in person, at work, at an event in front of whatever, how many people, networking, online. You're going to be able to see through the BS if you're really looking, because you're either in it or you're not.
And when you have your own discernment about your own habits and behaviors and thoughts, you can generally get a bit more discernment about those around you.
That's it.
So you also have him as your coach, which I always find fascinating, this dynamic between marriage and coaching. So how do you navigate those two roles?
I earlier mentioned the word buckets. We have our buckets, but we also have our hats. And what I mean by that is this is tough for a lot of people, and most people don't have to do this in their relationships, I think. But Jay and I are very unique in the fact that we own not one, but two businesses together, and we're husband, wife, and he's my coach. We have to, we get better every time and level up every time. We really try to analyze, how are we doing, at the end of each month or a couple of months, we'll look back and be like, how are we doing in this category with our lives, since they're so intertwined, and what could we improve on? We just are assessing. And so when we do that, it helps us put on the coach hat when we need to be coached, but it also helps me come to him as, hey, Jay, I'm coming to you not as my best friend or my husband or my business partner. I'm coming to you as coach. I am your client. Let me ask you this question. So I can tell him the hat I need him to wear, then he can put it on and answer objectively through those lenses, if that makes sense. Baby, I'm coming to you as your wife. I just need a hug. Just fucking hug me right now. Kiss my forehead. I just need my baby wrapped around me. You know what I mean? Or, okay, I'm coming to you as your business partner. I'm not being soft here. I'm not being make it better. You know what I mean? I'm coming to you as, we need to have this conversation. So I think if we prompt each other, I'm coming to you as this, it kind of prompts the other of, oh, this is how I need to approach this as I respond. We're not perfect at it, but we're pretty good at it, and we get better all the time.
Love that. I think that's really awesome that you're able to communicate that, and each role or each hat represents a different maybe version that might be needed or come out in that time. And you run your coaching business together and the tanning salon together?
Yep.
Okay, so how do you manage that? You said buckets, so I'm thinking, I'm sure your schedule maybe looks like buckets too, but I'd like to hear, so I'd like to hear more about those two businesses.
So yeah, with the salon, that's a brick and mortar. With our coaching, we can do that from anywhere, because it's virtual. But with the brick and mortar business, we each kind of play our own roles. In the beginning of purchasing the salon, he knew that I wanted my own something. I just didn't know what that was yet. Yeah, I knew I wanted to be a coach, but we weren't there yet. We purchased the salon. Let's rewind. We lived together after just not too long of a time of getting to know each other. And then we bought a salon, and it was around for a couple years before we got married. Nice. And then the coaching business, somewhere in between all of that. But, I went to school for interior design and architecture. So when it comes to the aesthetics, in the salon, he kind of left that up to me, because that's what I do. Yeah. I can't help myself. I can go into any space in the world, any home, any business, and I immediately, just without trying, I'm already redecorating it in my brain. And so I was in property management for almost 15 years, what have you. So managing a team of people came natural to me, but it also came fairly natural to him. So, but the leadership and the management of our girls, we somewhat share it, but in large part, that's me. When it comes to the salon and how it looks and feels, that's kind of me. But I've also kind of taught him some of those things. So he's getting pretty good at design right now too. But he comes along and he's like the big picture. He's kind of looking at budgets and saying, here you go. This is what we have to work with. Or he's like the techie guy. So if something needs maintenance or computer issues or whatever, like he's the guy. You know what I mean? But we do communicate all of these things with each other. But in large part, he kind of just lets me flourish and run there because he's like, I want to buy this with you. I want it to be our business, but I want you to just have your thing that's your own. So that's my baby.
The salon.
Even though it's our baby. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I really do. So why did you decide on a tanning salon?
Some people that we know owned it for 2 years and they were relocating out of state and they were like, hey, we're probably going to sell. Like, and we were like, well, they told Jay at first and he's like, don't sell yet. Let me just talk to Amy because I think she wants something and maybe this could be her something. So we took it over. Now we've owned it for almost 5 years, I guess. 5 years.
That's awesome. And do you do your own tans for the stage at all?
No, I don't. Well, I mean, I pre-tan in our beds, trying my best not to get the under the butt tan lines, but when you have a big booty, it happens.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. Yeah, I just rely on whatever show tan because I want to look the same as all the other competitors up there as best I can. So in terms of the color.
Got it. Well, let's go into your coaching business then. So you guys work with lifestyle and competitors.
We do.
What do you think competitors who come to you generally struggle with that you feel sets you guys apart as far as support goes?
That's a good question. I actually love that because that's what we're building for. And that's with our outward marketing messages and things like that. Like what sets us apart is that when you go to a coach, 9 times out of 10, it's eat this, take this supplement, maybe a protocol. Here's your training, do your cardio, go do it. Send me pictures. I'll tell you what you need to do next. That's the quick and dirty, right?
Yeah.
We take it way farther than that. And we work on hormones and we work on gut health. We have to because it's a whole person, but we also work with their clients no matter what bucket they fall under, lifestyle or prep, routine, habits, how we talk to ourselves. We talk to them about time management and we talk to them about prioritizing different things in your life and how to do that and how to work with, if you're living with someone, whether it's a friend or family or a spouse or whatever, on how to support, actually true support. And we really tap into the shit that goes on in our brains and the thought processes and how to come from a thought, feeling, emotion, action. Like we really tackle like the human as a whole, because you can't get to this stage with training and food alone. You have to conquer the shit in your head and you're going to have to bust outside of comfort zones. And so I will challenge my clients and I'm very direct with them, but I'm also their biggest cheerleader, but I'm also very quick to be like, that's an excuse. You can do better. Let's go. And they know that. So I think that's what sets us apart. We work on the human and transforming them as a person.
Yeah, and you can't really implement a lot of those changes without working on the human because the human is what created the current habits and behaviors, and that's not where they want to be. So
yeah, I look for their littles. I look for the littles to show up and the old habits that can still creep in every now and then. And I really, really put a magnifying lens on trying to find those, because if we can find them, realize them, correct them, and work on them, game changer.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that from a psychological perspective. Being in the mental health field, it's important to me that coaches are taking an approach like that. And I really respect that you do, because it's key for behavior change in general. Even though like a behavioral psychologist might focus on environment a lot, they recognize it's very difficult to control. That's control thoughts and behaviors. I look at it like everything's got to be congruent. So we think we need control. We really need congruency. If you can have someone who's able to shine light on when you're acting from a place of congruency versus not, you're working with a great person, or you have a good team behind you to support you in improving. So like you said, it's not now, a couple times I think about the positive things, it starts turning into a snowball effect. If 9 times out of 10, I'm having positive responses to these negative things that might come up and are
Mm-hmm.
inevitable to come up, versus the past when no one could point it out and I wasn't even aware of it. It was 1 time out of 10, 2 times
Right.
out of 10.
Right. Right. So boundaries and choices, you know, we work on those too, because that's all part of it. How we choose to view or think or feel about something is within our control. We can choose, nope, this is toxic. Nope, this is negative. No, I don't have time for this right now. Because when you say no, even though that's hard for a lot of people, you are ultimately saying yes to you.
Mm-hmm.
And more people need to say more yeses to themselves and no outwardly.
Well, I appreciate in your content too on Instagram, which we'll make sure to share, but your content, you really speak to empowerment. Like going through your posts, it's like a sense of strong female energy, with this mix of the feminine and the masculine. Like it's a good balance. It's very empowering. It feels like you really are genuinely caring for people. You're welcome. It's true. Seriously, you have such a way with words. You speak from your heart. You talk about your own journey. And I think that that's really important. And it's also powerful because you've shown that you are an example. And everything we've talked about, even with the health routines. And I know for you, bodybuilding was a big part of changing how you act. And it was something that allowed you to pour into your cup.
Mm-hmm.
But when we spoke earlier about this, you you put it in a nutshell and you briefly said, and then bodybuilding happened and changed everything. But why bodybuilding? Like you said, you always wanted to be a muscle ball, but like
Yeah.
what where did that even come from?
I mean, I just found I remember, I don't even know how old I was, but probably 10 or under. And I remember the old living room that I grew up in that house. And I was, the boob tube television that sits on the floor with the wood paneling around it, the mauve carpet, the blue couch with the flowers on it and duck on the wallpaper, had flying ducks. I don't know. This is the setting. And I remember watching the TV and seeing men bodybuilders competing, but I didn't know that they were competing at the time. I was too young. I just saw muscular physiques. But
Yeah.
as the years went on, I didn't think of bodybuilding. I just knew I gravitated to, like I'd always race the boys in my neighborhood and try to beat them, or always try to do more pull-ups than them. Or I was athletic to some degree all the way through college. I was I was a cheerleader. I would, I always wanted to do something athletic, and I liked being around those that were in a gym. But then I stopped that cold turkey once I graduated college up until 2017. And, then I found myself again. Where the F have you been? You know what I mean? And I didn't ever have this specific, oh, I'm going to be a bodybuilder in my mind. But when I got to the point of feeling good after working with that movement coach, it just was like, poof, light switch on. You need to go hire a coach to do this. And I don't know where it came from, but it was very intense. And I was like, I'm going to do this. Okay. And so I did it. But what I didn't realize I was going to be getting into, that was the game changer for me, was when I ate well, I felt better. My digestion was better. I wasn't like rushing to the bathroom and couldn't leave my house because I had to I didn't know food was going to go right through me. My anxiety was better. I was getting strong. My back didn't hurt, all these things. And I felt fucking good. And it felt good to feel fucking good. And so I just was like, I'm not doing this anymore. This is my trajectory forward. But what I learned was discipline. What I learned is, whoa, I'm way more capable of whatever I want to do than I ever imagined. And I keep rediscovering what further possibilities I'm capable of along the way. What I learned was I have control of so much. It's down to the point of how I think, which affects my confidence or what have you, or gives me more, I'm a big manifester. I was manifesting the F out of this last contest season. I would literally tell myself when it was really, really hard, really hungry, really tired, I didn't have any more in my tank to give, would put on a very specific podcast in my head and I would listen to it and I would just tell myself over and over, you're a pro, you can do this. A pro would do this. You have to do this. And so I would just manifest things. But now it's because I know what I'm capable of. And I do see myself as a badass in my own way because I know where it came from and I wasn't before. You know what I mean? So I kind of just rock that badass mentality in my head. I have to in order to be at my best as often as I can.
That's right. Now, what was the podcast you kept listening to?
I'm never telling anyone because it's my little secret sauce.
That's okay. That's the one thing you don't have to tell us then.
That's like my little secret, get me through the tough moments of training. And that's just for me.
That's yours. That's okay. You keep it for yourself. I wasn't sure. I was like, she said the podcast. So I'm like, I wonder if
Jay knows what it is. And it's just something that did it for me. It spoke to me. It resonated with me at every front. And anytime I started to feel like I wanted to throw in the towel, oh, I'll do it later, I'm just done, I would turn it on. And a few messages that would be delivered on there, I would just repeat. And it would literally, it was like climbing a ladder out of a hole. It would just pull me up.
Wow, that's really awesome. I think it's great that you have that for yourself too. It almost can serve like an anchor. To like pulling you out of those dark moments. There's certain songs that'll do that for me, like that I would listen to during the prep and I'm doing like so much cardio and it would pull me out. And now when they come on, it's like I'm instantly like in that mode because it's like an anchor to that time.
Yeah. There's certain things. I mean, there's still certain songs that like if I'm in blank mood, I'm put that song on and it like gives me life, or it like calms me, you know, or if my anxiety's kicking, I'll turn on meditation music. You know, there's certain things that I listen to for certain times that I feel, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I got so many playlists for the same reason. I'm this is going to help me through this. So,
and that would be whatever that feeling is. That's the name of the playlist. You're like, I'm going to listen to the Calm Your Anxiety playlist. I'm going to listen to Yes, You Can Do This podcast, you know?
Love that. Absolutely. So I actually realized I never asked you a random question that I wanted to, which was, what's muscle penguins? I believe I remember that.
What is muscle penguins? So yeah, when I was first starting to talk to Jay, when we haven't even been on a date yet. We were just kind of like at our first, maybe in public, something at the Fort Collins Fitness Festival. I went to say hi to some friends that were there, and I knew he was going to be there. So I went to say, hey, we walked around for a little bit. And as we were walking away from a booth, a buddy of ours at the time Snapchatted us walking away from the booth, and we were both short and we were both muscular. So we kind of waddle and we walk. And so he just sent us the Snapchat, but he put a little penguin on it. He's like, two little muscle penguins. And it just forever stuck. Like our tanning salon, the business outward customer facing name is Novatans, but the LLC is Muscle Penguin Acquisitions. It's literally a business name for us. And so that's where Muscle Penguins came from.
Oh, that's so cute.
It just stuck because we waddle. I don't know.
And how special you have that memory captured too of your first little. Yeah, that's so special.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I had to ask that. Now let's talk about your journey. So your journey as an athlete, specifically within bodybuilding. So you were inspired. You said, yes, I'm going to do this. Throughout your journey, you not only competed in bikini, but you also dabbled in wellness for a little bit. So
I did for 2 shows. Yeah, I did.
And what was that like, and why, and how did you come to the conclusion it was bikini for you?
So my very first show was bikini, and I love it. I still do. That's, my current division. That's my now forever division. But there was a moment where wellness just popped up in the US. It was a new division. So it was just like, oh, we're curious, but it hadn't yet evolved to what it is now. And so it was like, because I can grow muscle pretty easy. I could walk by a dumbbell and my biceps or my quads are just like, boop, we're growing now. Or at least that's what Jay tells me. But so I thought, for bikini, like I have some big chunky legs. Like if you see me in my off season, you might think, oh, maybe she's wellness. So I thought, okay, well, maybe we'll see what this is all about. Maybe my physique is better suited for that. Well, I did a local show. I did well. I smashed it with but I did a crossover at that show. I did bikini and wellness, and I did very well with both. Earned my national qualifications basically through both divisions. And so then I went to nationals not too long after that show, which was back in 2020, I think. And I very quickly learned, because that was a crossover too. And I placed about the same in both divisions, bikini and wellness, at the time. But I learned very quickly after looking back at photos and seeing myself up on stage alongside the other competitors in the wellness category that, okay, you are not wellness, you are totally bikini. And so I got the judges' feedback, and Sandy at the time was like, you either need to come way up for wellness or come down a little for bikini. So I chose to come down, but I did for a minute, and then I was like, oh, maybe I'll grow for figure. I never competed in figure, but I put on some size, which has fared me well. But I ultimately wound up back in bikini because I was on stage for wellness in 2020 alongside Dr. Sunny Andrews. And I was like, oh, no, I just don't have that size. Actually, I don't. So I was like, okay, we're not doing wellness,
Yeah.
So I did it, and it was fun, and I like it. I like the attitude of it, the power of it, because I like muscle. I like all divisions personally, but bikini it has my heart because it has my little sassy flair, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. That's understandable. And I tend to hear that I have really big legs, but I try to remind people, I'm like, this is a lot of fat on these legs right now.
You have to have that to grow, and that's healthy. So that's fine.
Exactly. It's like when I was competing last year and I wasn't conditioned enough, the judges were like, you may want to try wellness. And I'm like thinking, I know I'm just not conditioned. It's just the shape looked more wellness.
Right.
It was out of balance. But when I got conditioned, the judge feedback was, this is great. Like this is how it should be. And they showed me where my imbalances were. And so with the way wellness has progressed since its debut in the US, it's so obvious. Like there's no even comparison to the bikini division.
But when it first came out, what do I know? Let's try it.
Hey, and a lot of people were crossing over to try it and see. And also, it gave people like you who do have a tendency to put muscle on quickly in your legs and a potential opportunity to go into a division that's new and honors that part of you and your genetics. But you ultimately decided bikini was for you, and that was the feedback you were getting too.
Yeah. I mean, like I could get there, I could grow, I could run a bunch of shit to get there, but I was like, I don't want to do that. And I'm very short. So I don't want to be wah and wah. Short and what, I was like, keep some sort of petiteness about me. That'd be fine.
Yeah, like Sandy herself even says, you got to be happy with your body even in the improvement season. So whatever division you choose, pick one that you understand. In the improvement season, you're going to be thicker. And so it's going to just be that, but bigger. And bikini's bikini's so muscular now. It's like
most people wouldn't believe how muscular bikini can be. Like if there are certain muscles on my body, I was told at my pro show of like, just develop blank and don't even just maintain the others. Don't even, because if I grow more, I can outgrow my division because I am on the more muscular side for bikini.
You're very muscular, but in an awesome way. Like I'm like you in that I love muscle and I love the trend of the bikini division being more muscular. Like even compared to 2015 when I did my first show where it was a lot of the beach Barbie look, and then it started developing more and more into, and it has over the decades and the years, but I like where it's at. I think it's intense, but it's very motivating and inspiring. So I think it's cool that you found what's worked and you've done well. We talked about in the intro how great you did at your pro debut. So what was that like for you?
Last season was like a roller coaster of awesome. I didn't know that was how everything was going to unfold, but of course I wanted to do well. I'm like, if I'm going on stage, we're bringing it. I'm not going up there with a half-ass anything. We doing this. So I go all in, I give my all, and I tell my husband, do not take it easy on me because I am your wife. And he'll be like, here's your updates. Don't divorce me. Sorry. Yeah. But we went into the local show with, let's kick some butt. And I basically won all of my classes with the exception of no, I did win open. I just didn't win the open overall. So I won my open. I won my both masters, and then I won the masters overall. I just didn't win the bikini overall for open.
That's awesome.
So then we go to nationals, and it was Masters USA, and I did 40 and up and 35 and up. And 40 and up, I won both my classes in 35 and up and 40 and up, but you had to win the overall to go pro. I was in the overall for 35 and up, but first I was in the overall for 40 and up. And that's where I went pro. So I was an overall, which was an incredible feeling. And I was like, what the hell? That just happened. Someone pinched me. Oh, and I see Jay in the crowd. And I'm like, that just happened. And then like 2 weeks later ish, I went to do my pro debut, and I was like, man, I was up against the Phoebe Hagans. I was up, Jess Fit Jess. I can't think that's her Instagram handle. Anyway, there was like 4 Olympians in that show getting ready to take the stage for the Olympia. That was their warm-up show for the Olympia. And I was like, okay, we're going to like some big dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And I held my own, which was pretty kick-ass. And
Yeah.
I think there were like 16 girls that day, and I placed 10th. So to place top 10 at my first show against who I was against was awesome. And Jay will even look at it like this. I guess it's kind of a cool way to think about it that I didn't initially, of like, if those 4 girls, the ones that went on to the Olympia, were not there, you placed top 6 at your first pro show. And I was like, okay, if I can place top 10 with those girls and they look damn good, I was like, you know what? I'm coming. You just wait. I'm going to develop these low glutes and I'll be back.
Absolutely. And so that's what you're working on now?
Yeah, after that pro show, it was announced that the Masters Olympia would be returning, and I applied for it because I was eligible to apply. And they probably won't do an application system going forward, but because it's the returning year, they did. And so I tried my luck at it, knowing that my low glutes need some development, but what the heck, try. I wasn't selected. I was bummed, but I was also very objective because I know, just by being a coach and what the division calls for, like, I need my low glutes further, like, more dense. So I'm like, it's okay, because when I do build how we know I need to build, I will be very competitive. So that's what we're working on. Training is kind of boring because it's like low glute and more low glute. And how about low glute? Don't touch your quads, but more low glute.
What are some of your favorite exercises for that?
Oh, some are not my favorite. I hate them, but I tell my clients, if you hate it, make it your bitch. Just own it. So it doesn't own you. Like Bulgarian split squats, I really hate those, but I love them because I'm better at them than I ever have been. But they suck. And I do RDLs, reverse RDLs on the hack. I try to go as heavy as I can for as little as I am with RDLs. And I shortchange my reps. I go short range of motion so I can focus on the low glute. Very slow to lower, hold, very slow to come up. Hip thrust, cable kickbacks, abductions, those are some of the top ones for me.
Love it. Okay. And you've done improvement seasons in the past, and you've made really great improvements through those. And I think it can be easy as a competitor to be like, I just want to stay lean, or I just want to stay in this shape, but you need to improve. So what are some things you do to capitalize on this season before a prep?
I mean, right after a show, that first 2 months after a show it can mess with your head sometimes, like, after working so hard and getting so lean, you want to hang on to that because we all look and feel our best then, right? Well, maybe look our best. Feel like we are hungry, whatever. But I also know that I will be healthier and run optimal and feel fine, once I'm back to my normal. But there, for me, has been beauty in the pause of a 1.5 to 2 year gap between competition seasons so that I can add some size, because I value my time on stage, but I value it most when I bring it. I don't want to just stand on stage because I had the itch to compete. If I did that, I'd be competing every month. But and that's not sustainable, right? You don't make improvements doing that. And I am the type of person of like, critique me and I will come back swinging because I will do the work. And so if I don't, I get down on myself. So I like the off season because then there's some balance again. I can focus energy on my businesses, on me, on Jay, on whatever about life, not just competing. It would just be really too hard to always be competing with the way that our life is. So I like the off season, and I can get down on pizza on Friday nights. So.
Yeah. Do you plan to compete in Open and Masters as a pro?
Yeah, I think I would. I think masters has been my sweet spot because if I'm winning overalls, it's usually always in masters. And that's why we chose to go to Masters USA, because that's where I have traditionally done the best. And once that was realized, we knew that was my lane. I would compete in open for sure. But I think we know that masters is where I thrive most.
Very interesting. And I think it's awesome that you still did that show though for your pro debut. You placed so well. Now you're taking the time to improve. I love how you said you value your time on stage more when you brought the improvements and you put that in there. This is I think a shared sentiment across the board for a lot of competitors who love being on stage. It's like, yeah, if I could do it as often as I wanted to, I would be, but where would it be taking me? So it's like that value in showing up and enjoying it so much and savoring it so much because of the sacrifice in air quotes, but because of the work put in and the improvement season that brought that physique or brought that fulfillment.
That's it. And what you said is kind of like furthering an answer to a question you asked earlier, like why bodybuilding? It makes me level up time and time again. But to get to that next level, if I want to win a pro show to go to the damn Olympia, which would be incredible, and I think I'm capable, I have to keep leveling up, especially in my off season, because as we all know, that's where the growth is. And if you're unwilling to grow and take the time off and to maybe put a little bit of size on and take a little time off the stage and really grow, you're not going to get to that next level. You just won't. Into story, unless you're just incredibly genetically gifted out of the sky, how do you just have to put in the work. And so if I'm coming on that stage, it's because I did work.
Heck yeah. Love that. I remember I was speaking at a Boss Bodies retreat and I won this certificate to compete at a class show.
Nice.
Within the year of 2023. And I was like telling Joe, I was like, Joe, you just told me my feedback to grow. I won't be able to use this. And he's like, I'll extend it to 2024 for you so you can. And I was like, that's so awesome, because I do think it's important to know, like, the judges, the others in the sport, spectators, a lot of people who love it understand those journeys too of the prep and improvement season. And it's so cool when you see an athlete get back on stage and you're like blown away, like, wow, she really built her lower glutes. Wow, she really created a more balanced physique. Wow, her posing looks so much better. Like, that is a very exciting thing for fans. And fans are also fellow competitors. It's like, it's such a cool part of the sport. And I like how you focus too on that why being, it's always pushing you to up level. And that shows up then in other areas of your life, as you've demonstrated.
Yeah. And that's it. And I appreciate you saying that, because that's something that Jay and I, we put a lot of attention to, is if it doesn't move the needle to make us better or to grow the businesses in the way that we want them to, or if it doesn't get us closer to the goals that we've set for ourselves, we literally have like dry erase boards with our buckets and the goals stated. And all of our decisions are based on, doesn't move the needle to get closer to the goal. If it doesn't move the needle, it's probably no, not going to happen.
Yeah. I love that. That's such a great way. It sounds like you guys have a theme of evaluation and presence in your life.
We do. Is that odd?
No,
that's what we do.
It's odd if you consider the norm, but it's actually, I think, the best way to do it. And I think that's the way more should do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's just what works for us. We're very deliberate in what we do. And if we say we're going to do something, we both agree on it, we go in hustle mode all in, and we're going to make it happen. We're going to find a way, even if it's stressful, because it can be very stressful to manage two businesses and our own prep and life. And sometimes we think we're going right. Oh, then one of the businesses and we need to turn left. So we have to constantly kind of ebb and flow, and it can be challenging, but it makes us level up and learn what works and what doesn't. And then we can go back to the drawing board and say, we're making decisions in this way now. We're going to put more boundaries in place and more time management, button it up even more to where we can be effective.
Oh, and when you're doing that so often, your rate of growth and change is exponential. So you almost have to keep doing that.
Hence our tagline, you exponentially. That's exactly why it's that.
My goodness. I didn't even know your tagline. So that's awesome.
So alinea means, grammatically speaking, to start a new line, thoughts, sentence. Where coach brains say to start a new journey, to start a new to start anew. And our logo is shaped like a triangle, but the upside of it is like a little arrow or caret. And in the mathematical world, the little caret means to the exponential power of. And so our coach brains are you exponentially level the fuck up.
That's awesome. Living by example.
Hey, you have to. You can't just say it. You gotta like do it.
Yeah, and like you said, it's known and it's felt. And before I get your best advice, is there anything I didn't ask you about that I should have?
I don't know. I don't know what that could be. I don't know, but my best advice in the way of what, for competing, or
so
in what
here's
respect?
the question. Give me your best advice for someone who's never competed before but wants to, and then your best advice for someone on their road to pro.
For someone who's never competed before, don't just get a coach. Ask questions on how they're going to benefit you. Ask questions on how they coach so that you can, we all learn from certain types of people. You know what I mean? What is someone that you learn best from? And don't just, it's kind of like what I say to my clients about food or supplements, you know, don't get the cheap thing just because it's cheap. Quality in, quality out. If you're going to invest in yourself, go all in, make the best investment that you can, not just go for the price, the cheapest. And don't worry about if that coach is online or in person. Go for the online, because we coach people all around the US and, you know, international if we need to. So like, go for the person that's going to have your entire well-being in mind, and that's going to teach you along the way, rather than say trust the process, but make the investment in yourself, because I promise it will level you up as a human across the board if you have the right coach. And know that you won't always feel like doing the work. You have to say fuck the feeling and rely on discipline. And if you're not, learn to be, and that coach should be able to help you learn to be.
Beautiful. And how about advice for someone who's on their road to pro?
On your road to pro, eat like a pro, sleep like a pro, train like a pro, think like a pro, do everything like a pro. And if you don't know what that is because you've never been one, then imagine yourself being like a professional football player or some sport that you love and know a lot about, and be like, in order to do that level of doing, I've got to be willing to do the work. And so learn to say no to some things so that you can say yes to realizing your potential.
Love that. So awesome. And you gave so much implementable advice throughout this episode too, which was amazing. And I would love for people to be able to follow your journey, connect with you, maybe even work with you. So can you let everybody know how they could do that?
Yeah. Pretty simple. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, but on Instagram, it's Amers, AMERS _ Lil Dino, LILDYNO. And then on Facebook, it's Amy Vetters.
What's the Lil Dino?
Lil Dino, my first coach ever, the one before Jay, just says I was a little stick of dynamite because I'm a sassy little thing, and I'm little, but I am big at the same time. And I'm just very open, you know, but also for my size, I'm pretty strong. And so it's a combination of strength and, you know, sass, I guess.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to put all of that in the show notes page, all the links as well. So you guys, that's always on www.celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section. It's alphabetized. Look for Amy Vetters. You will not only see all her links, you will also see a full summary of the entire episode as well as timestamps. So that's great because you can go back and listen to different points of the episode or tell people where to start it. And there's a full bulleted list of the topics we covered too. So when you're sharing it with your friends or your family or your teammates, you can let them know what parts you liked the most. And I really appreciate your time, Amy. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you too.
Yeah, of course. And to everybody listening, hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you're in the world where you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.